in. All right, Sarah, also from Challenger Middle School. Why did Nana Grace tell Cass's daddy about Jemmy's mom going to school? Jemmy's mom was one of the children who walked through the door of the school when schools were first desegregated. And what Nana Grace wants that very prejudiced man to know is how hard it was to be a black child walking into what had formerly been an all-white school. And she tells about parents spitting on the black children as they came through the door, and how those black children were dressed so beautifully because the parents wanted them to show that these were good kids. They were as good as any white kid in the school. Now, I got these details, which are all true, from a friend whose father was a superintendent of schools when this was happening. So everything you read in the book happened in real life when those black children first came into the white schools. I wanted you, the reader, and Mr. Bodine to know how much courage it took to be the first black kids to come into a white school. Here's one from Gabriel. What were the reasons that you chose the names of the characters in the book? Writers spend a lot of time on character names. I have two main characters. I have Cass and I have Jemmy. Now, Cass is a tomboy. She dresses kind of plainly. She doesn't own good clothes. She's kind of a tomboy. I gave her a one-syllable, blunt name, Cass. In my mind, she's not Cassie. She's just Cass. Now, her new friend, Jemmy, is prettier. She's a little fancier. She's very bold and outspoken. I put the word gem in her name. I wanted her name to sparkle, so she's Jemmy. We spend a lot of time on this when we're picking our character names. James, also from Challenger, says, did you enjoy writing this book and why? Yes and no. I enjoy every book that I write, but this one was particularly hard because the topic was really ugly. And some days I would get up and think, I have to think about prejudice again today. And sometimes I thought, you know, prejudice doesn't even exist anymore. Why am I writing this book? And then something would happen that would remind me why I was writing this book. Something would come up and I would realize that prejudice is not gone. We're doing better, but we're not there yet. And so I would start writing again. What kept me going was that I loved the characters. And I loved things like the running that they did. And they read a book together. They read Jane Eyre. I loved them exchanging their views on what was happening in Jane Eyre. So it was fun, and it was not fun. All right, this one is from Austin. Why did the freed African Americans have to struggle to support themselves since they were free and all? That's a really good question. But if you go back to when the slaves were freed, you would notice that all their lives they had worked on plantations and they had belonged to someone. They had never been out and looked for a job, and there were very few people who were willing to hire them. They were not educated, they often couldn't read. And so becoming someone who is free and supporting yourself is a very, very hard transition. It takes a long time to do, and so that was a problem. All right, Ben, if you were to create a sequel, what would it be? There are 4 sequels to this book. What happened to me, I didn't think I was going to do a sequel. I didn't say, I'm going to make a series. But after a while, I started missing the characters. So I thought, well, what if I just come back to the neighborhood and check on them, see how it's going? And so one summer later, the second book occurs, and it's called Anna Casey's Place in the World. And it's about a couple of kids in foster care who move into that same neighborhood. And just a few pages into the book, you will hear the sound of running feet in the neighborhood. And when the runners come into view, you'll see that they're Cass and Jemmy, the characters from the first book. And each book is like that. It belongs to a different set of characters, but the old characters return in each of the books. Here's one from Brittany. How did Cass become such a fast runner? All right, Cass's family doesn't have a whole lot of money. She doesn't join a lot of things that you have to pay to be part of. But you can run without it costing any money. So Cass runs by herself. She goes to the school after hours and she runs on the track. She goes on the weekends and she runs. No one has taught her how to be a good runner. She just runs. Her friend Jemmy had a dad who was a runner. And before her dad died, they would go out and run together. So her best memories of running, until she runs with Cass, are running with her father. Christian says, why did you name the team of Jemmy and Cass Chocolate Milk? I wanted them to call themselves something that showed how together they were. Now, I could have called them something like Oreo Cookie, which is chocolate and vanilla, like they are, but that's still not mixed together. When you do chocolate milk, it's like they're one thing. They're a running team that's so together, they're just chocolate milk. Okay, Summer. What would have happened if Jemmy and Cass had won the race? It would be a different story. If they had won the race, it would have been really great. But I needed a way for Cass to prove what a good friend she really was. And that wouldn't have happened if they'd run across the finish line together and won together. Now, a lot of kids would like it if they had run across that finish line together because it would have been exciting. To me, the friendship is the exciting part. Here's one from Bailey. Would you say that Crossing Jordan is one of your best written books? I hope so. It's one of my earlier books, so probably it's not quite as well written as the later books, but the subject of the book is really powerful. And you always get to be a better writer when you've got something really important to write about. So I'm hoping it's well written, but it's kind of up to you to decide. From Yolna.
Would you like to have a movie made from the book?
Yes. Nobody's offered me a movie contract yet. I'm kind of hoping someday it happens. I have to tell you a sad thing, though. If you have a movie made from your book, you will make way more money than you would ever make from the book itself. And that's because more people watch movies than read books. So I want to thank you guys for actually sitting down and reading my book. Thanks a lot. Gasleen?
Hello, my name is Gasleen. I'm from New River Middle School. My question is, when you ended the story, the family seemed to be getting along. Did Mr. Bowden tear down the fence?
No. And I can tell you this because he shows up in the next 4 books and the fence remains there. Why doesn't he tear it down? When he puts it up, he's putting it up because he doesn't want to look at these new neighbors. Why does it stay up? Because after a while, it's just a fence. Nana Grace grows her gourds up against the fence, and the kids run around the fence. It's no longer important. It's just part of the landscape now. And Barry?
Hello, my name is Barry, and I am a student at New River Middle School. And my questions are, at the ending, it seemed like they all got along, but from the dad's personality, it seemed like he might start the racism again. Will he still hold a grudge or let it go?
You probably noticed in the last scene when they have dinner together, it's very hard for him to walk into the home of a black family and sit down at the dinner table with them and eat. And yet he's the one who, when he says grace, changes his normal grace and says, "Thank you, Lord, for food and friends." He's making a huge concession, a huge change to come into this house and sit down for dinner. Does he have second thoughts? Definitely. And will he have second thoughts for a long time? Definitely. This prejudice, he grew up with it. He's going to take a long time to change. But by the time years have passed, he will feel very different, and he will become a better and different person. It's just not easy for him. All right, let me see if we have any that didn't get answered. This is a question from Kristen Barzola. I found how the girls connected through running very interesting because I love to run myself. Why did you choose this as the main way for the girls to connect in the book? Okay, the main story is the prejudice, but by itself it's a very bleak story. So I wanted to have another storyline, which is the running. I needed to bring the girls together doing something that they could do just the two of them, so it couldn't be a team sport. I wanted to show how competitive they were and how hardworking they were. So I chose running, but I have to admit, I wish I could say I'm a runner, but I'm not. And so when I worked on this story, I needed the help of runners to get the details right. So I had friends who were runners read it and give me advice. For example, at the end, when they're going to do the big race, I had them eat a giant breakfast, and my friend who ran said, if they ate a big bowl of spaghetti, they would barf on their shoes. So I took it out. So if you don't know the details that you're writing about, you do research. You talk to a friend, or you go online, or you pick up a book, but you figure out what you need to know. So that's where the running came from. There are a lot more questions here than I answered, and I want to thank all of you for the questions. I tried to answer one from each of you. All of them were excellent. I really want to thank you, though, for taking the time to sit down and read my book. One of the things about being a writer is we work all by ourselves, and we sit in our houses and we write, and we wonder, is anyone ever going to read this book? These questions have showed me that a lot of you have sat down and read my book. So thanks a lot, and keep on reading.